Bill and Hillary Clinton just flipped the script and it caught MAGA completely off guard. For weeks, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans have tried to shift attention away from the fallout of the Epstein files by threatening to subpoena the Clintons. The plan was simple: make noise, create a distraction, and accuse them of dodging accountability. They even floated holding the Clintons in contempt if they didn't quietly show up for closed-door depositions. That plan just blew up. The Clintons responded with a move no one in MAGA expected. We'll testify and we want it public. No private backroom session, no selective leaks, no spin. A public hearing in full view of the American people. Their message was blunt. If this is really about transparency, then let the world watch. This matters because while Trump claims the Epstein files vindicate him, the documents released so far tell a very different story. Even in this limited drop, just a partial release of roughly 3 million records, Trump's name appears tens of thousands of times. And that's the key word: partial. Millions more documents may still be hidden, and many of the pages released are heavily and in some cases improperly redacted. The Clintons aren't asking for protection. In fact, they're asking for the opposite. In a recent statement, they openly called on the Department of Justice to release everything, including any material that references or mentions Bill Clinton. Their position is simple: if the truth is going to come out, it shouldn't be filtered. Now they've put dates on the table: Hillary Clinton on February 26, Bill Clinton on February 27, and they want those hearings held in the open. That puts the ball squarely in the hands of House Oversight Chair James Comer, who only days ago was publicly threatening contempt charges while claiming he hadn't heard from them. So now the question flips. If the Clintons are willing to testify publicly, why the sudden preference for private hearings? And here's the bigger issue no one on the MAGA side wants to talk about. If this investigation is really about Epstein, then Donald Trump himself shouldn't be hiding behind press statements and cable news appearances. He's deeply referenced in the files. Accountability doesn't mean talking points, it means sworn testimony. This moment also exposes a larger pattern. While MAGA Republicans control the House, they've quietly shielded Trump-aligned officials from real scrutiny.
Unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Yeah. Cabinet members dodge hearings, leave early, or don't show up at all. Oversight is stalled unless Democrats create shadow hearings just to keep basic accountability alive.
Bonding for the documents. She started producing the documents. Then Congress voted for the discharge petition to send another message, and we all voted for that. They are sending documents. They sent a big batch. The Democrats were unhappy. They said there weren't enough redactions, so now the DOJ is going through trying to make sure they redact everything. So as from my standpoint, the Department of Justice is cooperating. They are turning over documents. We would all like for them to turn documents over quicker. But at the end of the day, they are complying. President Trump is answering your questions about Epstein. He's answered them over and over and over again. Who we haven't heard from is Bill Clinton, and I stated why. The amount of time that Epstein spent with Clinton while he was president and post-presidency. So I don't think it's out of line for former President Clinton to come in for a bipartisan subpoena and sit down and answer questions. So thank you all very much.
That's why the Clintons' move matters. Public hearings don't just inform the public, they restrain bad behavior. When the cameras are on, it's harder to lie, deflect, or turn serious investigations into partisan theater. Sunlight changes the rules.
I think it's a good move, and I welcome that. I think that the more that the public sees and hears what's going on, the more trust they're going to have in it. And I think that it also keeps everyone on their good behavior, right? I mean, it's less likely that, the Republicans are going to get into all kinds of other topics or areas having nothing to do with the subject matter at hand. So I think it's a good thing. Look, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And so we need transparency generally around here in Congress, and certainly with regard to the Epstein files and any deposition, really. That's called accountability, my friend. You know all about it. And I think that that's lacking with this administration. There's no accountability. They don't think that they actually need to be held accountable or need to be forthright or transparent or open or honest with the American people. That's why, as you said, within the Oversight Committee, I've called for Kristi Noem to come before us and answer questions. Of course, I've asked for her resignation. I've asked her to be fired. If she's not fired, I've also joined calls to impeach her. But a number of people need to come and testify under oath. And that is the key about what the heck is going on, because they're acting with impunity right now, and that is not okay. And I'm hearing it from all corners. I'm hearing from Democrats, of course, but also independents and Republicans. I'm hearing this from across the spectrum. Totally. And remember, when Democrats were in charge of Congress and we had the White House, so to speak, that did not stop us from bringing administration officials on a regular basis to the House to testify in the open about whatever they are working on. That is absolutely essential. And that's what really, ensures at the end of the day that people know what's going on. And if they don't like what's happening, to have a say in it real time. And that is not happening right now with the Trump administration, as you can tell. So we have to keep pressing. We have to put pressure. Fortunately, we do have one lever that is extremely effective, and that is the power of the purse. And I think that is why, by the way, hopefully we'll be able to negotiate some meaningful changes with regard to the DHS. Because as I've said before, I think we have to abolish Trump's ICE, and we have to just revamp how things are done with DHS. Look, I think, what I've said is, we need to first get rid of Kristi Noem, get rid of Greg Movino, masks off, body cameras on, identification on, no more warrantless arrests. You need third-party investigations of abuse of discretion or use of force. And you need a situation where there are no longer roving gangs of ICE and CBP agents through our cities for no reason. It doesn't make any sense. That is abolishing Trump's ICE, in my opinion. That is like completely changing the nature of what's going on. And I got to tell you, I'm hearing this. I'm not just hearing this from Democrats. Now I'm hearing this from a broad swath of people. One person just told me a few minutes ago, her uncle was a Trump voter, and he showed up to an ICE protest, and then he publicized it to everybody. I think this is like going beyond or transcending any kind of party lines. So in about half an hour, I'm about to participate in a hearing. It's called a shadow hearing because, as you said, the majority is not participating and not convening it. But it's important nonetheless. So it's actually a bicameral shadow hearing, one that's being done with the Senate kind of Government Affairs Committee, Homeland and Government Affairs Committee. And basically, we're going to have a chance to meet with the Renee Good, the family of Renee Good, but also other, victims of what's happened with DHS. And Chicago, as you know, was ground zero for DHS's operations. And so I'm looking forward to, talking to victims of DHS's operations in Chicago, learning from them what happened, but also shining a light on what happened. So more people understand kind of the stakes of what's absolutely imperative with DHS, which is, changing it completely.
Now the pressure is on. If transparency is the goal, the answer is simple. Open the hearings, release the files, and let everyone testify under oath. Anything less looks like fear not accountability.